A landlord was forced to sell Colorado apartment complex after it was taken over by Venezuelan migrant prison gang Tren de Aragua. Forced to sell. Now, you got a bunch of storylines going on here. Let's dive into it. Here we go. Now, the one storyline that I would really hone in on is that there were multiple code violations and instances where the city came in and said, these buildings, there's like 3 buildings under ownership by a landlord who is reportedly, I have no personal knowledge, is reportedly what is commonly referred to as a slumlord. So you've got buildings that are in really rough shape. Now, watching a bunch of footage from Jonathan Cho going through these buildings, they're rough. They're, windows broken out, sliding glass doors, off their hinges, just kind of up against the exterior of the building. You've got no way to secure these units. Some of them have running water, some don't. Some of them have electricity, some don't. You've got wire, hot wires hanging out from, electrical outlets. They're hammered on. They're tough, entry-level, affordable housing. They're tough. They're rough. Anybody who's been in real estate's been through one of these units, and you just go through and you're like, wow, rode hard and put away wet. If you know that saying, just, yeah. So as far as real estate goes, these were not Class A properties. How about we put it that way? Keep that in mind. Colorado landlord has agreed to sell a troubled apartment complex that was taken over by the violent Venezuelan migrant gang Tren de Aragua. Now, what they would have you believe that these projects were 100% controlled by Tren de Aragua. I don't think that is true, but they certainly had significant influence. Let's just say that. I think you can comfortably say that. Now, this whole notion of the prison gang was literally running the apartments, I could see somebody looking at this situation and going, hey, they're kind of running things there. And whether they've got each an individual unit under control or not, don't know. But who's going to screw with a Venezuelan prison gang member telling them to do something? Probably nobody. And a large number of the occupants of these units have been Venezuelan. So, they're going to stand in line because they literally are trying to outrun from Venezuela this type of influence, and it follows them here. And so they're like, they're head down. They're just trying to make a way of it, trying to make a go in the United States. They don't want to get mixed up with this. Landlord Zev Baumgarten has been fighting with the Denver suburb of Aurora over the Aspen Grove after the city accused him of allowing it to become a trash-ridden, gang-infested hellhole, according to records obtained by the Denver Gazette. So the attorney for the management company, CBZ, had written letters quite some time ago giving a heads up to city officials that, hey, we've got a real problem here. So city officials have known about this for quite some time. This is not new news. It's a matter of, is the management company embellishing what's going on, knowing that they've got a complex that is riddled with code violations, or in fact, has Tren de Aragua actually taken over these projects and are running things? There's a video out as well indicating, a bunch of guys running up and down stairwells, some guy on the telephone getting, they break into the unit, they go into the unit. There's all this back and forth. You've got that out there as well. Well, that proves that the gang has taken it was just one unit that video showed, right? There's one unit, one. So does that mean 1 out of, 99 is definitive proof? I'm just playing devil's advocate here because a lot of this stuff, the truth is somewhere in the middle. Baumgarten's company has now agreed to sell, lease, or find some similar disposition for the complex, which was shuttered in August, displacing some 300 residents, the Gazette reported. Remember, this is kind of a C-shaped from the air. This is kind of a C-shaped property. And you can see that they have literally man, they have boarded up all the windows here that have access. They've boarded up the main floor windows. Yeah, main floor windows. Those are all boarded up. They've got razor wire up and over. So they literally booted everybody out, including all of the Venezuelan tenants that were in this project. Now, services came in and activists came in and helped all those people try and get into housing. But this is affordable entry-level apartment complexes that are rough. They are rough. More than 300 residents were evicted from Aspen Grove. So now you've got this notion of, yeah, they're overrun by the Venezuelan prison gangs, but you're also displacing a bunch of families trying to make a go of it. Okay. All right. So you got that. That's why I say you've got multiple storylines going on here. His company, Nunn Partners LLC, Nome Partners LLC, I think it was on Nome Street, right? Must also pay to clean up the site. I think it was like 60 grand is what I saw. Is it 60 grand, 30 grand, something like that, under 100K. Baumgartner's company blames a takeover by Tren de Aragua for the dismal state of Aspen Grove. So it probably had been let into disarray. And then with the addition of the Tren de Aragua influence, it did not get better. How about we just say that? It did not get better. And then management booked it out of there. Like, hell no, I am not managing this unit. No, you got a bunch of gangbangers running around who do not care. I'm not staying. You've got a rapidly spiraling downward apartment complex. And then you've got management that says, no, thank you. Hard pass. We're out of here. And then you've got ownership saying, hey, well, the attorneys for the management company, they contacted city officials. We're asking for help. Okay. So you got a lot of storylines going on. One investor told the Denver Post that police had known about the gang problem at Aspen Grove for nearly a year. Doesn't surprise me at all. The investor said the situation got so bad that staff abandoned the site, allowing trash to pile up and the building to go to ruin. I think they let it go on purpose because they're like, we do not want to, bring law enforcement in and clean this bad boy up. You've got enough folks running around that we don't want to tangle with. Therefore, cut off utility service, cut off garbage service, management. We're not going to rehire management. And they just literally abandon it and let it go. And that's when you started to hear city officials, what's going on here? This is terrible. It's horrible. We got slumlords here. Yeah, you do. But it didn't help when Tren de Aragua rolled into town. And so this is in Aurora, Colorado, not a self-described sanctuary city. Their mayor has gone the opposite way and said, no, we don't want to do that. But the issue is Denver is close to Aurora. And as a result, people that have, immigrated to Denver are now living in Aurora because it's affordable. It's cheap. It's cheap. And they're going to go over where they can. There's no map delineating, all right, you got to stay in, sanctuary territory here. So in June, attorneys for the landlord had sent letters begging police and local officials for help, claiming Tren de Aragua had forcibly taken control of Aspen Grove. Maybe that's true. I don't know. One of the things that Jonathan Cho said of the interviews that he did, and if you don't know who that is, that's he's one of our local news guys here and he is a reporter. He's a boots on the ground reporter, covers a lot of the homeless situations going on. But he said in interviewing the folks in the complexes where this was happening, nobody wanted to talk about Tren de Aragua because you're talking about a violent Venezuelan prison gang. Hey, I'd like to interview you about the local prison gang in your building. What would you like to say? Put the mic right in front of him. Hey, go ahead, speak up. What dumbass is going to start talking? Yep, there's gang members here. They frighten me greatly. I see them beating people up and, they're taking our rent money and they're doing this and they're doing that. Nobody's going to say that. You'd have to be just an utter buffoon to just not understand what's going on. And if you live in these complexes, guaranteed, you know what's going on. Last month, a video surfaced at a separate apartment complex showing a gun-toting crew breaking into a unit. That's when Baumgarten found himself facing more than 80 charges for building code violations, ranging from vermin infestation to power outages. Here's a clip from that, and this is the unit that they broke into. Whatever. It was a vacant unit, right? It was a vacant unit. So, what people are seeing as Tren de Aragua taking over an entire complex means they might have control to a handful of units. We don't know. Are they walking around with pistols? Absolutely, yes. Are they walking around with an AR-15 styled assault rifle? Yes, to that as well. But you know what? Gangs run around with that. That's, weapon of choice, right? Though he puts the blame on gangs, prosecutors pointed out that a second Baumgarten-Odin complex, Fitzsimmons Place, which was also shuttered in August, had code violations dating back to 2020, according to local publication Westward. That property, too, had been overrun by migrant gang members, as has a third site in Aurora, a suburb of Denver, that opposed its neighbor sanctuary city policy. It's allowed more than 42,000 migrants to enter the city. So, Aurora, next door to Denver, is feeling the pressure. And if you've got an apartment complex that is not particularly well run, and by that I mean your management does an exit stage left and says, nope, not dealing with this anymore, does that provide an opportunity for a violent Venezuelan criminal gang to effectively take over? Absolutely. So, I think the real storyline there is somewhere down the middle. Have they, do they have guards sentries outside of each of these buildings, so that official violent Venezuelan prison gang members can come and go freely? No. But would you feel comfortable going there and looking at an apartment unit? Probably not either. There's some real danger here. There's some real danger. And there's real danger to the families that have been living in these units that are like, hey, we paid our first, we paid our last, we paid our damage deposit, whatever it is that you pay in these situations. Sometimes it's just first month's rent because they know that's all you can come up with. And there's no damage deposit. You work on that. You figure out whatever it is you can do. But oftentimes there is damage deposit because even in these situations, rent is super cheap, but you got to have the tenant have some skin in the game, just a little bit of skin, because otherwise, just trash the place. Who cares? It's on to the next. And oftentimes that is what happens. So you've got a lot of scenarios going on here. And so bottom line is the landlord cut a deal. He's going to sell. So what happens is the city comes down on him with 80 violations or whatever, 80 violations. And I think, management, ownership via management, via attorney is trying to get out of fixing all this stuff up. And what it came down to is, hey, you can either fix this stuff up and keep going with this, or you can sell the damn thing. Or move it along, or sell it to the city, or do something. But change in ownership, it sounds like that is what's going to happen. And that is probably for the best. What will happen then is any of the units that are still occupied, those will probably get cleared out because you're going to have to do a massive renovation to these complexes because it sounds like they've had big ticket issues for years and years and years, and nobody's putting money back into them. So they're going to have to clear them out, and that'll take care of the Venezuelan migrant gang Tren de Aragua. In these units, that means they just go elsewhere, right? If not these units, they're going to go somewhere else because they got to live somewhere too, right? So they tend to go in groups. They go because there's strength in numbers. And so that's what you'll see. But these projects will get sold. City will take them over, do a big renovation. Hey, look at what we've done. We've got some more affordable housing to add to the stock. Well, that's because a prison gang took them over after massive poor leadership by the management company and, in turn, by ownership. So that's what you've got going on in Aurora, Colorado. And I think you've got so many different, conflicting stories on this because this is such an easy target for the right side of things versus left side of things to say, hey, here's what's happening. This is terrible and horrible. Coming soon to a city near you. Well, this was going on for long before you had the violent Tren de Aragua come to town. These issues with these buildings, they were compounding. You didn't have investment into these buildings. You just didn't. So when all the situation kind of came together, it makes absolute sense. And you will see that, you'll see that in other communities with different groups of folks take over, the slum building, the slum projects. It's a known quantity because they're easy to take over. There's not enough money to go around for security or for somebody to really give a rat's ass that, hey, maybe a violent prison gang doesn't take over this complex. They're out of state and out of mind. That's just what happens. So it looks like the saga of the vacated complexes that have been forcibly vacated by the city in Aurora, Colorado, those are going to be sold or transferred or something to somebody else. And that kind of gets them on down the road to, all right, somebody else is going to take them over and do really well. Now, I've dealt with, owners who've owned a bunch of single family and big complexes. And once you get a couple of bad apples in a complex, it's very hard to get them out because they tend to bring more and more of the same. And when you're dealing with illegals from Venezuela, they're going to take cheap housing and they tend to live in communities. And so they're, birds of a feather flock together, that whole thing. See, there's some real truth to that as well. They're going to stay together. That means some of these lower end housing units, they're going to be run by Tren de Aragua one way or the other. You can't ignore that as a storyline because that's just not reality. Whether they're being actually, run by Tren de Aragua, you get this notion that you've just got a couple of guys who are from the prison gang and they are literally collecting rent for management, but just not handing over the rent. They're just taking rent. Has some of that happened? Probably. But it's because it's, forcible robbery. Hey, bang on somebody's door that isn't going to fight back. Make them giving you your money? You're a prison gang. Of course that happens. Of course that's going to happen. To have this wildly naive notion, oh, that's not happening because there's no proof of it, is just silly. And quite honestly, it's just stupid to think that might be the case. Oh, they're all just living in harmony, singing kumbaya, doing the Lord's work. No, that's not true either. So the truth, somewhere down that middle. But, mass media wants to spin it one of two ways. No, this is not happening. All the immigrants, they're totally fine. And the other one is they're all being taken over. Let's have a lot of fear. This is the craziest thing ever. Let's blame it on the southern border. Bottom line is you've got literally 45,000 immigrants that have come to Denver because Denver, sanctuary city, virtue signaled, come our way. And now we are seeing the end result of that. Any which way you spin this story, at the end of the day, Tren de Aragua is there, and they are there because we've had a wide open southern border. Period. That's what I'm going to leave you with. All that other stuff, that's up for you to decide. All right. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next episode. Bye for now.